You know, some of the most fascinating stories aren't found in a single book. Nope, they're scattered in little pieces across dusty old records and weathered gravestones, just waiting for someone to put them all together. Today, we're going to become historical detectives. We're going to piece together the life of one man from the paper trail he left behind. And our investigation, it starts right where his life ended.
So we start at the very end. And it's a dramatic one, a tragic accident. This one sentence from a genealogy book tells us the when, the where, and the how of one man's death. It's a shocking event, right? A carpenter falling from the frame of a meeting house he was helping to build. But for us, it's also our first big clue.
And here it is, carved right into the slate. This is the actual text from his gravestone in Westminster, Massachusetts. It's simple, it's direct, and it gives us his name and his age. But look closely at that title, Cap for Captain. That is clue number 2, and it tells us he was a man of respect and authority. This is the big question, isn't it? This is what our whole investigation is about. We've got a name, a date of death, a trade, and a title. But who was the man behind all of these facts? Well, to find out, we've got to go back to the beginning and start following the records. All right, our first step is to check out the foundational documents. These are the biographical sketches that historians wrote long after Seaver was gone. This is how we're going to build the basic framework of his life. Okay, now this is where the real detective work kicks in. It's so cool. We have 2 main historical sketches here, and they agree on most things, like his military service and how he died. But there's this one tiny but really crucial difference. Cutter's version says his wife's father was Jacob Reed, but Haywood's history and other records correct it to Isaac Reed. It's a perfect reminder that historians are always cross-referencing, always double-checking to get the story right. And just so we're all on the same page, this is the kind of source we're working with, a genealogical sketch. It's not a full-blown biography. It's more of a summary, a collection of the vital stats pulled from town records, land deeds, and military files. It's like the skeleton that we're about to flesh out. And wow, what a family it was. At the very center of Norman Seaver's world was his family. As you can see, he and his wife Sarah had 13 children over a 25-year span. Just think about that for a second. Providing for a family this big was pretty much the driving force behind every single thing he did. And that becomes crystal clear when we look at our next set of clues. So, how in the world do you provide for 13 kids in 18th century New England? Well, you build, you buy up land, and you move. Norman Seaver did all 3, and we can actually trace his family's journey just by following the paper trail he left behind in local land deeds. This timeline right here basically maps out their whole journey. They kick things off in Sudbury, but as the family gets bigger, so does Norman's ambition. He moves them to Shrewsbury and then finally to Westminster, and each time he's looking for more land and better opportunities. You can literally watch his family grow just by tracking his moves across the state. His first big move was all about this: 100 acres. He bought this land in Shrewsbury back in 1760. I mean, this wasn't just some little plot of land. This was a serious investment. It was a clear signal that this was a man determined to build a real future for his growing family. And it turns out he was a pretty savvy landowner too. 12 years later, in 1772, he sells that land in Shrewsbury for £200. Now we know he bought it for £120, so this sale almost certainly financed his final and most important move. And this was it, the final destination, a 127-acre homestead in Westminster, which he bought in 1773. This was where he would raise his youngest kids, build his reputation in the community, and live. Right up until that tragic day in 1787. This land was his legacy. Okay, let's circle back to that title on his gravestone, Captain. Being a landowner and a father to a huge family is one thing, but Norman Seaver was also a soldier. His story is deeply tangled up in the story of America's founding. This slide really shows his commitment. He wasn't just some passive supporter of the revolution. No way. He answered the very first call to arms, the alarm of April 19, 1775, and marched to Cambridge as a sergeant. And he didn't stop there. He steadily climbed the ranks, first to ensign and then to first lieutenant, serving for long stretches down in Rhode Island. And get this, military service was a total family affair. Norman wasn't the only one who served. 3 of his sons, Benjamin, Joseph, and Isaac,
joined the cause, and so did 2 of his brothers. So that captain title? Well, the official records say first lieutenant, so captain was most likely an honorary title he earned in the local militia after the war ended. It was a huge sign of respect from his community.
We've seen how he lived, where he moved, and how he served. Now we come full circle, right back to his death in 1787. But this time, we're going to look at it through the lens of the very last documents he left behind, his probate records. So what exactly are probate records? Well, think of them as the final legal accounting that happens after someone dies, especially if they didn't have a will. They give us this incredible, detailed inventory of every single thing a person owned, from land and buildings right down to their tools and livestock. It's truly a final snapshot of a life's work.
And what did that snapshot look like for Captain Seaver? His total estate was valued at £375. And as you can see from this chart, the majority of his wealth, over half, was tied up in his real estate, in that homestead he worked so hard for. This tells us he was a man whose wealth was literally rooted in the land.
But it's the little details that really bring this to life. His real estate wasn't just a plot of land, it was a 106-acre lot with buildings. And it included something else, a pew in the second meeting house, the very building he died helping to construct. Owning a pew back then was a big deal, a real symbol of your standing in the community.
So who inherited this legacy? His family, of course. His widow, Sarah, received her legal third. The rest was divided up among his children, with the oldest son, Benjamin, getting that traditional double portion. Every single name on this list brings us right back to that family table we saw earlier. His whole life's work was for them.
This quote from the actual probate file is fascinating because, you can't exactly chop a farm up into 11 equal pieces, right? So the court awarded the land to the eldest son, Benjamin. But in return, he was legally ordered to pay his siblings their share in cash, £11 each. It was a really practical solution that kept the family farm together while making sure everyone was provided for. So, in the end, who was Captain Norman Seaver? Well, he was a husband and a father. He was a soldier who answered the call for his country. He was a builder of both homes and communities. He wasn't some famous general or politician, but by piecing together all these records, we've uncovered the rich, full story of a foundational American life.
And this really brings us to a final thought. Norman Seaver's story was preserved in land deeds, muster rolls, and probate files. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What stories are waiting to be discovered in your own family's records?